Hi, everybody. Welcome to ICLR's Friday Forum for July 12th, 2024. I'm your host, Dr. Keith Porter, ICLR's Chief Engineer. I'm speaking to you from Colorado Springs, Colorado. This is webinar 219 in a series hosted by ICLR, the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction, Canada's leading source for disaster resilience knowledge. Each month, we present recently completed research related to ICLR's mission to make Canada more resilient to natural disasters. Last month, we had two talks. Patrick Foisey told us about good and bad roofing and siding practices, and Bob Robichaud briefed us on the 2024 hurricane season. Next month, on August 9th, Eric Sparrowlin of the City of Richmond, BC's Engineering Department will tell us about his city's flood mitigation strategy and its resilience goals. Today, we turn to flood around the world. ICLR's friends from Western University, Professor Reza Najafi and Dr. Mohammad Fereshtehpour are going to give us lessons on how cities around the world do climate-resilient stormwater management. Dr. Fereshtehpour is an expert in water engineering and its impacts on flood. Dr. Najafi is an expert on floods and droughts, and he leads the Hydroclimate Extremes and Climate Change Lab at Western University. Today's talk seems particularly important because the frequency and severity of Canadian catastrophes that involve some flooding is growing, and it's growing really fast. Insured losses from catastrophes that have some flood component currently cost Canada about $100 per household per year. That's a lot of money. And that's increasing at about 10% per year, which means it's doubling every 7 years, which means Canada has an increasing flood problem that it is not solving. So let's see what lessons Doctors Fereshtehpour and Najafi can bring to us from abroad. Now, before our speakers begin, here's our agenda. Our webinar is going to last about 90 minutes. Our speakers will present for about half of that time, then I'll moderate Q&A for the rest of the time. Please feel free to chat your questions into the Q&A box. I'm going to try to pose your questions in the order they appear in the Q&A box. If we have a lot of questions, I may only pose your first question, then move on to others, then circle back to your additional questions. Now, our webinar is recorded, and ICLR is going to post our speakers' slides and a link to the video on Monday or so. So if you have colleagues who couldn't attend, let them know. You'll find the video and a PDF of the deck at www.iclr.org/workshops. And now I will turn it over to, I think, Reza, you're starting? Thanks, Reza.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Reza Najafi, and I'm from Western University. And today, Mohammad Fereshtehpour and I will be discussing the climate resilient storm water management by drawing some lessons from a study we conducted over 11 jurisdictions worldwide. So let me start with a brief introduction. I'm an associate prof in hydrology and water resources engineering in the civil and environmental engineering department. And Mohammad is a postdoc researcher in our lab. Our research mostly focuses on different aspects of hydroclimate extremes, such as floods and droughts. We study compounding effects of hazards, such as compound coastal floods and compound inland floods. We studied the transitions between extremes, such as the dry-wet transitions and the impacts of climate change and the role of internal climate variability, overall to increase the resilience of infrastructure. Of course, stormwater management has a critical role in urban resilience, and today we will discuss our study over the stormwater management best practices. I will first provide a kind of an overview of this project, the motivation behind our study, our objectives and introducing the case studies and some of the overall recommendations for this work. And then I will hand it over to Mohammad to present some of the details of this work. So as a background, we noticed that we are affected by multiple types of hazards that are intensifying under climate change. And these hazards not only occur individually, but sometimes they occur simultaneously or at different times, but they exacerbate each other's effects. For example, assuming that there is a wildfire is happening, a few months later, a heavy rainfall might occur that will lead to a mudflow. Or when flooding happens, generally with heavy rainfall, there is also river overflows. And in coastal environments, sometimes it's combined with storm surges, etc. So these hazards in a changing climate are expected to exacerbate not only individually, but their interactions and interplay can become more complex and more dependent, leading to more compound and catastrophic events. On the other hand, we have the infrastructure systems that are growing fast globally, and they are all interdependent, meaning that a failure of one entity or one asset can propagate through the system and affect other parts of the system. And ultimately, it will affect us as humans. And there is a need to understand these interactions between hazards and the infrastructure systems to increase our resilience. So basically, in our hydroclimatics lab, we focus on these kinds of hydroclimatic extremes, specifically floods and droughts, which combines our skills in engineering, climate science, hydrology, data analytics. And we also established the Center for Multi-Hazard Risk and Resilience to strengthen this kind of collaboration between disciplines from different departments and faculties, not only engineering, but also science, social science. And so through these activities, we also utilize tools and data like ground-based observations, radar, satellite, climate models, etc., to understand these climatic risks and the hydraulic processes. So regarding the stormwater management, we all know that these are crucial infrastructure systems, stormwater systems, to mitigate the flood risks and to reduce the urban flooding. And this is very important to protect our infrastructure. On the other hand, they play a critical role for improving the water quality and making sure that the aquatic systems, the waterways are healthy. And so our goal as engineers, but also in different disciplines, would be to develop effective stormwater systems to make sure we adapt to the increases in extreme rainfall events and overall extreme weather conditions under a changing climate. So the motivation behind this study came from the fact that there is a rapid urbanization, which ultimately reduces the infiltration rate, increases the imperviousness of the ground, and leading to more intense flooding and reduced time to flood events. And also the increased extreme weather events that are putting, I should say, unprecedented pressure on the stormwater systems. So these systems are often outdated and they are often designed based on historical data. So these designs, they are not suited for the current and of course for future conditions. So there is a need to update the strategies, to improve the designs, and to come up with solutions to enhance the capacity of the storm sewer systems. So the research objective in collaboration with the City of Toronto was to assess and ultimately to improve the stormwater management practices. The study was based on a comprehensive analysis of Toronto's current practices and then compare these with some global best practices. We selected municipalities with similar characteristics, similar sizes, and climatic conditions. The goal was to provide some recommendations and a roadmap for future improvements of the stormwater system in Toronto. Our analysis was performed over 11 cities worldwide. Each one of these cities had a kind of unique approach, but there were a lot of similarities as well in terms of their approach to stormwater management. They include London, Berlin, Copenhagen, Europe, Melbourne, Australia, New York City, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Boston, Minneapolis in the US, and Ottawa and Toronto in Canada. As you will see, we noticed that the key strategies were focused on integrating the green and blue infrastructure and the innovative solutions for flood management. They have been focused on strengthening their policies and regulatory frameworks. Mohammad will go through the details of some of these frameworks. So I'm just going to give two examples of these frameworks. One of these is the Copenhagen's cloud burst management plan, which is basically a comprehensive strategy to manage extreme rainfall and reduce the flood risk. It has different components for flood risk reduction, to basically to handle extreme rainfall events. There is a lot of emphasis on green infrastructure, using parks, green roofs, permeable surfaces, etc., to increase the natural water absorption and reduce the runoff. Other programs include, for example, the cloudburst boulevards, which are basically designed streets that divert the excess flow from vulnerable areas. And I think one of the innovation of this program was to integrate stormwater management with urban development projects, which Mohammad will elaborate and touch on some of the obstacles they had and how they came up with solutions to address those. The other program is the New York City's Unified Stormwater Rule, which is again a comprehensive program for managing stormwater. It basically the rules apply to both new developments and redevelopments, so that all the construction projects are incorporating effective stormwater management. Again, there was a lot of emphasis on green infrastructure and mandates to incorporate green roofs and permeable pavements and other green measures into the projects. The program covers both the combined and separate sewer systems and measures to reduce the flood risk, and also providing tools, etc., to incorporate for different aspects and assets of the stormwater management systems, like the retention, detention systems, etc. Sorry. So in Toronto, there are programs in Toronto to deal with the current capacity, increase the capacity of the stormwater systems, and also to deal with climate change. There's a program such as wet weather flow master plan, which basically focuses on reducing flooding. There are some initiatives related to green infrastructure, and also the basement flooding protection plan. We identified some challenges and some gaps within the city, especially with regard to the available funding, initiatives with regard to the climate change, incorporating climate change into the design and planning, that we can elaborate further as Mohammad goes through these. So overall, we came up with some recommendations for the city. We noted that almost all of these municipalities and jurisdictions we evaluated, they integrated blue-green infrastructure systems. There's a critical need for adaptive regulatory frameworks that basically are flexible enough to consider the evolving changes in the climate, as well as urbanization and other things, to adapt to these changes. In terms of community engagement and education, we found that these are critical factors that many cities have taken it very seriously, and also came up with some ideas that are effective to educate the community, to make sure that these innovative measures are applicable, and of course, funding mechanisms and how to develop sustainable funding mechanisms. So I just wanted to go through the overall aspects of this project, and now I will hand it over to Mohammad to discuss the details of this work. So thank you all. I will stop sharing, and Mohammad, please feel free to share.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Najafi. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammad Fereshtehpour, and I'm doing postdoc at the University of Western Ontario at Hydrodynamics lab. And in this presentation, I'll be talking about some details on our projects, mainly focused on the city of Toronto's and its existing practice for stormwater management, and looking into the other international jurisdictions, as mentioned by Dr. Najafi. So We actually have access to a lot of resources available online, and we try to review almost all of them relevant to stormwater management, mainly focused on the uh, documentations rather than the just merely focusing on publications and in journal articles. We just focused on the guidelines, policies, and programs, and the regulatory frameworks, anything related to the stormwater related acts or climate change related acts. So for the City of Toronto, which was our main focus, we reviewed over 100 documents related to all these aspects, from water engineering, water resource management, or environmental protection acts, all the way to the guidelines specific for stormwater management, all this stuff. And for the other jurisdictions, we just try to have some keywords like climate change, like stormwater management. And with those specific keywords, we try to find the most relevant documents to see how they are doing and how they are planning for the future to incorporate, excessive excessive, inundation that is happening because of, poor drainage or poor, management of the stormwater. So, supported for supporting actually our findings, we try to reach out to different staff in the City of Toronto and in the other cities. And as you can see in this table, we have had several interviews with the City of Berlin, City of London, Copenhagen, New York City, San Francisco, and Minneapolis. In the other countries, and in Canada, we have an interview with the City of Ottawa, and you see the divisions that we talked with about the stormwater management. And in the City of Toronto, we reached out to several staff in different divisions to see what they are doing in different aspects, from the policies that are in place, the stormwater fee, how they fund their project, and how they are doing in their the programs that are of their main focus and center, like basement flooding protection program that is really important for the city. So with all those interviews, we just try to support our findings or to add some new insights to our outcomes from the literature review. So I'm going to start with to actually give you some details about the cities, and then we'll go over the highlights and key points of all these, comparative analysis. So I'm just going to give you a short insights from each city, and just to give you the sense of how we reviewed the literature, and then we'll provide you with some insights and takeaways. So yeah, the City of London has several key regulations in place. As you see, some of them are related to stormwater, some of them are not, maybe just for the water supply, as you can see here. And we looked into some climate-related acts, as you can see here. In different years, they have several acts that they have at least one keyword on climate change, and they wanted to regulate or have a high level strategy on climate change. So very important initiative in the city of London, as you can see, is the sustainable drainage systems and some other programs like green roofs, like City of London Open Space strategy. And we looked into the policies and programs that the cities are actually adopting on the term climate resilience. And you see that in some aspects, City of London has actually done and conducted several, studies, and they have several documents in that regard. And the other important aspects of each city that we looked into was the guidelines and the most important aspect of each guideline for us to see how they are managing their stormwater management from the technical actually perspective was the IDF curves and the way that they are using the rainfall intensities and duration and those stuff related to designing stormwater management and the scenarios that they use, the different aspects around that. So in the city of London, as you can see here, we have actually countrywide study which gives them some kind of after a climate change study, they give them climate change allowances, as you can see here, based on a UK CP or UK climate projections. They provided the city of London with some ranges that they can use for their studies to incorporate climate change. So the most important thing that we wanted to see in our study was to see if they are incorporating climate change into their design, if they are considering updated actually intensity, duration, frequency, or IDF curves or not, or if they are only using the historical ones. So for the city of London, as you can see here, we have some very rough estimation of climate change impact on precipitation. So for the city of Copenhagen, as mentioned, we went through some acts regarding the stormwater, and then climate-related acts and plans that are in place. And the most important thing that Dr. Najafi mentioned was the cloudburst management plan that they through that actually that lens that they provided based on, I think, as far as I remember, after the a very major flood in 2011, they came up with this plan, and New York City is actually they adopted this initiative with the collaboration of City of Copenhagen, and this is a very, very helpful and beneficial for stormwater management these days. So as you can see here in their plan, the average water levels that they allow to be on the ground was set to be 10 centimeter for a flood of actually with 100 years of return period. So the city of Copenhagen, through the actually lens of incorporation of climate change, we found that they are following the recommendations from the Danish Meteorological Institute, or DMI, and they found that their average rainfall, the change is going to be around 15% for the end of century. But their plan and their we couldn't find any meaningful guidelines there for increasing the IDF or for updating IDF curves. And as we actually had an interview with one of the staff there, they were just concerned about the current condition, and because of the uncertainty of the climate change, especially for the end of century, their sensitivity to these kind of analysis was not that much in the city as we perceived through our literature review and our interview. So let's move on to city of Berlin, and as you can see here, several stormwater related acts are in place, and then climate related acts in the city, and one important initiatives that they are following these days is the sponge city, which have the goal of decentralized stormwater management. So again, through the lens of incorporating climate change, we found that they are actually following the other high-level organizations. So we have actually in Berlin, they actually use a German climate atlas to have the IDF curves updated. So for the city of Melbourne, also we have several stormwater related acts. I don't want to go into the details. I just wanted to give you some details on what they are doing and what is actually in place for the city to rely on and to build upon their stormwater management strategies. And for their stormwater management, the city of Melbourne has water-sensitive urban design, which I think which is their focal points. So something that was really helpful for me through this study is that the guidelines in Melbourne called Australian Rainfall and Runoff, which provides a lot of useful information, especially regarding the incorporation of climate change into design and to actually updating rainfall. So they use, I just take a small piece of what they suggested to increase rainfall in intensity. And as you can see here, they are following, because of the uncertainties regarding the projection of rainfall and the higher confidence in the projection of temperature, as several other cities, they suggested to use some kind of formula or equation to have the projected rainfall based on the temperature scaling, as you can see here. So we have to have a temperature for the future, and based on that, you can have the rainfall intensity. So the other approaches would be definitely using the projected rainfall itself, which at some cases regarding the local variability, it would definitely have lower confidence compared to the temperature. That's why they are suggesting kind of these temperature scaling equations. So this guideline was very, very helpful for anyone who wants to have a whole process from designing, from the historical analysis up to the climate change incorporation. So in the United States, I just want to go over to two cities, New York City and San Francisco, and then I will move on to Canada for the sake of time. and I'll give you some insights from the Ottawa and the city of Toronto. So in United States, regulatory frameworks, as you can see here, there are some, and the most important measure or step that the New York City has taken since 2022 was their unified storm water rule that Dr. Najifi has actually pointed out in his slides. And New York City is also a green infrastructure plan and Blue Belt program. And in terms of the resilience, and from that lens, we found that New York City has a very valuable stormwater resiliency plan. So one important thing for the New York City has this is specific plan that they have for increasing the resiliency of the storm water, and I personally use it a lot to have kind of a better recommendations for the city of Toronto. You know, the many things for these two cities are in common, so this could be a very helpful plan as well. And the city of and New York City actually has a platform for the projection of rainfall for the future, and it's online available and it's easy to use. And I think, as far as I remember, it's done by the University of Cornell, and this is I think the first city I came across that they have this kind of platform for the future rainfall, incorporating several GCM and RCMs results, and would definitely be beneficial for any other cities that want to follow this kind of strategy to have the updated idea first. So for the city of San Francisco also, as you can see here, there are some of the specific code for their stormwater management and their high-level strategies, and their resilience in sustainability program that is mainly concerned about both flood and drought, in that region. Stormwater management is not, stormwater flooding or rainfall-driven flooding is something that is of equal importance with something like drought conditions and dry conditions. So city of San Francisco is important in both aspects, and they are leading in some aspects of green water infrastructures because of that reason I mentioned, that both drought and flooding is of equal importance for them. So this is something we could perceive from our studies. And they use the California's Forest Climate Change Assessment for their future projection and to see how the city would look like in the future. But they are collaborating as far as this is based on our interview. We found that they are collaborating with the Lawrence Berkeley Labs to downscale climate modeling, specifically for the San Francisco and Bay Area. So moving on to Canada, we have actually addressed all the same methodology for the other cities, Minneapolis, Philadelphia, which is very well known for its kind of initiatives in stormwater management, and city of Boston. So these cities are actually included in our study, but for the sake of time, I'm just skipping them and then moving on to Canada. For city of Ottawa, in Ontario, the two important acts is the Ontario Water Resources Act and Environmental Protection Act, and city itself, implemented bylaw or Municipal Drainage Act, and actually they have addressed climate change through their master plan, and they have also climate change adaptation plan. That's resilience lens, I said. So for the IDF curves, they are following the guidelines set out in the Ontario Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Stormwater Management Planning and Design Manual, which actually has historical rainfall and those that are provided by Canadian Climate Data and Scenarios tool, but based on the review of the literature and an interview, they are currently just considering a potential 20% increase in rainfall. So the city of Toronto, as I mentioned, they definitely follow the provincial laws that are in place, but they have their own green roof bylaw, which is very successful in the city to reduce stormwater from the decentralized strategies perspective. From that lens, it's very successful for the city, and they are actually following some climate change high-level strategies called transformed net zero climate action. Like many other cities, they are currently focusing on these kind of initiatives or action strategy or plan for the future, which is mainly concerned about the CO2 emission. And they actually, I told this, they have a resilience strategy and transform to net zero strategy. A comprehensive resilience strategy that the city has includes many programs and policies that the city have, but they try to make a coherent actually strategy to have all those plans and policies in one place. So in the stormwater management, the city of Toronto has several plans, has several programs like that Weather Flow Master Plan, which is of our main focus, especially from the guidelines perspective. So Toronto Green Standards, Toronto Green Streets and Revenue Strategy, and all those things are the one that are in place in the city of Toronto, and this the province of actually Ontario has a low impact development stormwater management guidance manual. It is in a draft version, as far as I know. It is not mandated or published officially, but it's also useful, and they have some measures for incorporating climate change. So the most important thing for the city of Toronto that we actually recommended for them to consider, and they already know that, but this is something that they want to make sure that what the other cities are doing, and how city of Toronto can approach to update everything related to stormwater management in light of climate change. So the IDF curves in the city actually were developed over 15 years ago, and that guidelines I mentioned, that weather flow management guidelines. And as you can see here, the projections shows different things in rainfalls, different indices of rainfall, different actually variables, just clearly shows an increase up to the end of century. So they definitely need to update their guidelines. And you see here is the comparison of a 6-hour rainfall, and based on the guidelines and the projections for the future. So considering just current guidelines that is in place, definitely underestimates all designs that they are doing. But in a program that they have as called as Basement Flooding Protection Program, they are thinking about all these things, but it is still not a major idea for them. So this is something that needs to be addressed in the city of Toronto. So I'm just going to give you some key highlights for several high level lens that we actually use: regulatory frameworks, programs and policies, and guidelines. So we investigated the regulatory frameworks based on the presence and effectiveness of the Stormwater Act and high-level strategies and climate change-related acts and strategies. So something that is really important is the green infrastructure in new development. So many cities suggested this as well. To at least you need to consider new developments, and there are some rules that are in place to manage all these things, at least for the new developments. And very high and frequent, emphasis of greenhouse gas emissions in all these acts, especially related to climate change. So if you want to highlight one gap here, is that definitely we need to have more guidance, more acts specifically for the stormwater management in light of climate change, and the acts currently are just focusing on the greenhouse gas emission. So one thing I just wanted to mention, here for every city has its own climate adaptation plans that is actually coming from the federal and national level. In some cases, as you see here, like the UK that I mentioned, they have a climate change allowance, which gives the city of London, which we investigated, a very rough estimate of future increase in rainfall. And in some other cities like Copenhagen, San Francisco, and they have some challenges in their legislation and their approaches. And in Copenhagen, they actually try to resolve those issues with a business cases solution to just actually have a better or give the politicians a better insights of what they are planning to do and how these kind of plans would be beneficial for the city. And in some cases, as I mentioned, we have NYC Unified Stormwater rule, which combines many things related to stormwater, newly developed or redeveloped properties, and their collaboration. It helps the city, private sectors to come and contribute to the stormwater management practices, more than before with just some federal the Act is more than that. So highlights from the programs and policies, as Dr. Najafi also mentioned in his slides, you can see that in several cases, they have a very, very, helpful, very well initiatives like the London Sustainable Drainage Systems, SUDS, or Copenhagen's and NYC's cloudburst management plan, water sensitive urban design, or the sponge city. Every city has its own, initiatives, or Philadelphia's green city and clean water that they have, with all these, foundations, they try to address all things related to water and subsequent stormwater management. So one thing that is really important these days is, and one more important question is that if the cities are implementing a stormwater management fee, and from the study that we did, several cities like Berlin, Melbourne, San Francisco, and Philadelphia, Minneapolis, and Ottawa has their own separate fee for stormwater management as a fair and equitable method of actually funding stormwater, of actually fundraising for the sake of everything related to stormwater management. And the other cities are thinking about it. For example, the city of New York, they are planning for it, so it has not been implemented as far as I know. And for the city of Toronto, it is in the process, and very soon you're going to have this rule in place, and they will announce it. So they are thinking about it, and they're planning, because it's very important to separate all the water tariffs or water fees from these, and wastewater from these stormwater fees, to have a better funding support for the future stormwater management plans. And regarding the climate resilience, we have London's climate resilience adaptive pathway, the New York City stormwater resiliency plan, which they have actually covered everything from design up to the emergency situation management. So it's a comprehensive plan that they have it in New York City, and Philadelphia's climate change adaptation program and climate resilient planning, which is very, very helpful especially for the design of stormwater management regarding and in light of climate change. So as I mentioned, design rainfall in cities is actually based on either historical rainfall patterns or future conditions. So in some cases, like New York City, you can have a platform for this to see how future projection of rainfall is varying. But in many cases, it is not the case. So for the city of Toronto, as I mentioned, you see that the guidelines and the projection based on the Environment and Climate Change Canada's data for IDF curves, there's a lot of difference in different written periods, which definitely shows how important it is to incorporate climate change. And incorporating climate change, as I said, after you update the design rainfall, you need to add some certain percentage increase, or just have IDF curves for the future. So some cities like London, Melbourne, and Ottawa, they are just using that rough estimation and inform their design, right? Stormwater management design. But in some cases, like New York City, like Philadelphia, they are implementing the future IDF curves itself, just not just based on the percentage increase. But this is something that should be considered, considering all uncertainties that we have in the process of having updated the IDF curves. So you see here several steps for incorporating climate change. We have to have a effective service life at first, and then flight design a standard, and then considering assets, and then climate change risk screening analysis to see if this infrastructure is of great importance, to see the exact or precipitation with high confidence with this infrastructure in the future, or it is not that important. So this is based on many things. So from the lens of asset management and climate change risk screening analysis, we can find out those kind of informations. And then we have to consider climate change projections and their consequences. And again, if the consequences is not that much, we can change our method and see the other things. And then definitely it should be aligned with the other requirements that is in place in the city. So I mentioned this. I just highlight this one as well here, that temperature scaling right now would be a promising approach, considering the uncertainties in temperature and precipitation projection. It's better to adopt temperature scaling these days. So we wait until the a better approaches or better projections with higher confidence of rainfall is coming, especially considering convection permitting models that considers the local variabilities and the atmosphere that can have a better projection of rainfall. So right now, the most promising tool would be using temperature scaling. So the key takeaways: detailed regulatory frameworks, as I mentioned, needed to be considered for stormwater management, and it should consider both economic efficiency and the quality of service. And overcoming legislative barriers involves creating business cases, the same as what City of Copenhagen did, to demonstrate that the proposed solution would be cheaper for consumers than building underground solutions. Considering climate change in urban storm systems, taking a nuanced approach rather than relying on blunt force, like just increasing pipe size. It's not the case for the climate change. So we have to have a nuanced approach for that. A combination of conventional and decentralized stormwater management systems would be definitely something that we need to adopt in the future. It's not just the matter of this increasing green infrastructure. They should be combined. We have to have a plan for combining all of them and to have an integrated plan. Gray, blue, and green infrastructures, all of them would be helpful, but in an integrated context, definitely. So integrating adaptation and resilience efforts with broader city improvement initiatives. This is also something that we mentioned through our presentation. And something that is important is to make sure that our measures do not worsen the situation for the vulnerable communities. we are not here to just transfer the problems from one place to the other. So we have to take care of our measures. If this measure would definitely reduce the vulnerabilities of all communities, that would be great. But if not, we are not allowed to, just transfer the problem or move the problem from one place to others. So in this regard, and in this, from this perspective, you have to take care of low-income and socially vulnerable areas. The importance of financial sustainability and ensuring proper allocation of resources, something like periodic reviews of a stormwater rate, a separate stormwater rate would be something that can be helpful in this regard. And impervious area-based stormwater fees and the role of credit and incentive programs. Something that is very important is to make sure that the stormwater fees and this strategy can be successful is to make sure that we have enough credit and incentive programs. Because especially in many big cities, the problem that, especially in our interviews, the interviewees actually mentioned that the problem is to convince people to accept another fee in their bill. So it's something that we have to take care of with some mechanisms like credit and incentive programs. So the other thing that I would like to mention City of Philadelphia, which is a leading in this regard, is the effective public outreach and education efforts that can help to promote community involvement in the stormwater management initiatives. Actually involving many communities would be a key in stormwater management, because as I said, we need to have decentralized approach. Green infrastructures are mostly decentralized approach. So we need to have all communities involved to make sure that we would succeed in our initiatives for incorporating climate change or coping with any hazards due to climate change. And something that is coming from the cloudburst management plan, as you see here. I have visited city of Fredericton yesterday, and something that was really interesting to me, I've seen in a very close area to the St. John River. I see such things, and it was really interesting, because these kind of things, I mean, the system of interconnected cloudburst bulwarks like this, you have two applications. The stormwater management is not just a matter of increasing pipe size or having culverts. You can actually have areas with multiple applications, multiple use. So the stormwater management or whatever we build can be beneficial for the other reasons, and it needs comprehensive. It needs a holistic, perspective, which you can find in several initiatives in the cities, like cloudburst management in Copenhagen and NYC, and in city of Fredericton, because of the Spring River flooding, which is really high there. They decided and they came up with some ideas like this. You have a playground, and this playground could be completely flooded when flooding happens. So this was our a review study over all these cities, and two papers are about to be published, and I hope it would be helpful for you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. That was a rich and wide-ranging survey of stormwater and flood control efforts around the world. I'm sure it's going to be very valuable. We have only a couple of questions from attendees, but I have a few that I'm going to ask as well. First, from Professor Simonovic, just to preface his question, your objectives seem to be something like draw lessons for Toronto from other cities around the world about stormwater protection. And you briefly explained how you chose those cities that might have the best lessons that Toronto might learn. Professor Simonovic points out that your choices omitted China and India, very populous places, that most of your cities are on ocean coasts that are subject to sea level rise, whereas Toronto is not. And none of them were in the Southern Hemisphere, and all were in the developed world. Do you think that there are lessons to be drawn from those places that were sort of outside of your, the regions that you pulled from? I guess that's the question. Do you think you're missing anything by not drawing from China, India, the developing world, the Southern Hemisphere, etc.?
Mohammad, do you want to respond to that question, or you want me to do that? Oh, you're on mute.
If you let me just, I will provide a very quick answer to this, because I was actually involved in this project. Mainly, my main focus was all this kind of analysis, and then you can continue, Dr. Najafi. So a quick answer is that yes, we do have several other cities that are really important in terms of stormwater management. But the thing is that we decided to have something very close to the city of Toronto, and the contacts that we had at that time, and the amount of time and the efforts that we could have. That's why we just selected some cities that are well-known for example, one aspect, and we definitely couldn't increase the number of cities, and we removed several cities in this list, which we knew that they are important, but because of the project's objectives, we have to just stick to 10 cities other than city of Toronto, and we were asked to just see the cities of comparable size or something in common with the city of Toronto, and that was the main goal behind it. It was not just a matter of only these cities and the others don't do anything. That was not the case in my opinion. And Dr. Najif, if anything more to add, please.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and I can add that the other factor we considered was the availability of information, data, documentation, because the focus was mainly on the available guidelines, the policies, and everything that is publicly available. So these cities provided tons of information publicly, and some of them were quite open to basically do the interviews and provide detailed information. So that was one reason. And the other factor was that we felt that, yes, that's true, we are selecting cities that are comparable to Toronto, Well, all of these have the same problem. Doesn't matter if you're coastal or not. They're dealing with intensive storms. And what measures they take. And the approaches they take are more or less applicable, I think, to other regions around the world. The use of green-blue infrastructure, how they incorporate them. Of course, there are variations in terms of the policies and rules, how you want to implement them. But just noting that how cities like New York City is incorporating the programs from Denmark into their stormwater management. That shows that there is this opportunity for different cities to see what others are doing and incorporate it in their program. So yes, I agree that there's definitely room for future studies to extend these reviews to other cities, building on what we have currently done and perhaps also further quantifying the effectiveness of these measures using model-based approaches. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. When you were talking about Copenhagen, I flashed back to a visit I made there a few years ago, and their goals, their objectives for frequency and depth of flooding seem a little terrifying to me. I mean, I think you said that they aim for a 10% chance per year of stormwater reaching ground level, and 1% chance of 10 centimeters above ground level. And the reason that sort of seems shocking to me is that, they have storefronts with sills at the sidewalk level, and the sidewalk is only maybe 10 centimeters, probably usually less than that above the street, which maybe 5 centimeters above the street. Which suggests to me that they're expecting that their goal is to have their storefronts flooded all the time. Not all the time, but quite frequently. Do their plans also include wet and dry floodproofing to protect people from those fairly modest flood control methods, or am I overreacting? Am I missing something about their goals?
Yeah, so sorry, Dr. Najafi, I will try to answer this question. So as far as I remember, and your question reminds me of a very hopeful picture, I think, especially regarding to your question, is that in cloudburst management, they are redesigning. They wanted to design or redesign the roads in a way that they can handle that amount of water. With all the businesses are still open, and with that kind of the strategies, I mean, that approaches, those approaches, they are trying to, for example, level down the center of for example, the road, and change the shape of even a very small, I don't know, street, and then, I mean, the cross section of the street. And then with that, they changed, they increase more, increase the capacity to actually have more stormwater and to control more stormwater, much amount of actually stormwater. So it's part of the cloudburst management and the way that they redesign the streets and community areas. And yeah, that's it.
And perhaps I can add that as far as I remember, they mentioned a lot of emphasis on incentives, incentivizing flood mitigation measures at the property level. And that included both the development increases in the green areas of the property land, but also working with insurance industry in terms of encouraging the owners to develop these, and also to provide for some funding sources for this program. So, but by the end of the day, I think there is always this residual risk that is there. We can always handle the flood to some extent, but eventually there will be some damage and some effects affecting some properties.
Were they aiming for some aggressive goal there, or are they just simply codifying what they expect to actually happen given the infrastructure that they've got? I mean, how did they choose 0 centimeters in 10 years and 10 centimeters in 100 years? You know?
I personally I think that this is definitely something based on their historical situations and their historical, considering historical observations, and I haven't noticed any kind of specific projections that they accounted for. So this is definitely something stemming from those kind of common analysis, which we already know. And yeah, I didn't notice anything specific. How they come up with these numbers?
Okay.
Like the common approaches
acknowledgement of the.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Professor Simonovic asked another question. How are the cities that you studied dealing with uncertainty involved in estimating future rainfall conditions? He points out that updating intensity IDF curves is still a huge issue, especially in Canada. Intensity, duration, frequency, I think. IDF, right?
Hey, Dr. Najafi.
So how are they dealing with uncertainty?
Mm-hmm.
So as far as my understanding goes, is that they are mainly taking sort of a risk-based approach. So they emphasize on monitoring, a lot of monitoring of the programs, evaluations of the measures they take, and make adjustments down the road. So I think this is pretty much applicable for all the infrastructure designs and planning that we do for the future, considering these ranges of uncertainty, which makes total sense. So that was one part of it. And of course, with advancements in the global regional climate models, there will be a better understanding of future changes in extreme rainfall events. They didn't mention that these are strict measures. In fact, I realized that they were talking about this kind of adaptive approach based on new information, new knowledge. So I think that was the core of their approach. And I agree that there is a lot of uncertainty in the project. In fact, what we noticed was that most of these cities, they take some sort of simplistic approach with regard to climate change. Many of them have just recently incorporated climate change into their designs and plannings. And some of them are just based on maybe a single study over the region. So there might not be that consensus in terms of the future projections. But they understand that, and they are they realize that they're working on it. In terms of projections, I realized that the City of London, they are kind of, my feeling was that they are more progressive in terms of utilizing high-res model, which capture the convective storms in their future designs. With Canada, US, it's very large land, and of course, these models are complex, and it takes huge resources to do these kind of simulations for these areas. So there's a lot of progress in these climate models, but Slobodan is right. There is a lot of uncertainty, and lots of things will change. Especially, we noticed that these extreme events in some regions are much more intensified compared to our previous expectation, or intensifying to a higher degree much faster. So these are the things that we keep on understanding, but that adaptive approach, risk-based approach, I think is the key to both be resilient in terms of building capacity down the road, but also considering all the cost and financial burden associated with the infrastructure systems, and these should be balanced out.
I'm interested, I know this was not a central objective of your study, but I'm interested in the environmental justice aspects of stormwater management. Now, you touched very briefly on that around slide 38, where you spoke about, I think, about helping lower income communities pay for property level mitigation measures. Are any of these cities trying to provide higher protection for more vulnerable populations or for historically disadvantaged communities, or how are these cities dealing with their environmental justice concerns, or are they dealing with environmental justice concerns?
So I haven't focused on this keyword in my study, to be honest. This is the first thing that I have to mention, because our main focus was on the high-level strategies, their common programs and plans and policies, and then the guidelines focusing and on concentrating on IDF curves and those kind of things related to that. So I cannot answer this very clearly, because this should be a topic of another study. But I haven't seen that much, focus on these terms. These are just something that are mainly, in our entering in our common scientific discourse, right? That's why we're just taking care of all these climate justice and those kind of things, and then we need to incorporate them gradually into our applications, and practitioners should be informed with all those things. So I just want to highlight that this is not the main focus. Maybe they address that in some cities, as I said, in Philadelphia. Whenever you see more community engagement, that problem should be less, because with all communities exposed to flooding, then you're gonna have a better and a comprehensive and holistic plan to address all their needs and their problems. So you have a less risk for those communities that are already in high risk areas. So if Dr. Najif has anything
yeah, in fact, this is an important topic. It wasn't as Mohammad said, the core of our objective, which was mostly the stormwater capacity building. But what I realized from some of those interviews, I think especially New York City was one of them, that they didn't, well, we didn't use this term climate justice, but in terms of identifying vulnerable communities and addressing the stormwater system capacity building for those vulnerable communities was something that caught my attention. For example, I remember during our conversation, for one of those programs, maybe Mohammad can recall that they emphasized that for this program, basically they prioritize the communities based on their vulnerability, and then they start implementing these measures based on that category. So they start from the vulnerable areas down to the, say, for example, the most robust or resilient areas. So I think they have started considering that in their programs, and noting that NYC took their approach from Copenhagen. I think they as well have been considering these in terms of identifying vulnerable neighborhoods and prioritizing their measures with respect to that. So I think that's something they have noted and they're working on this.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a very sensible approach. I think we have time for one last question, and we don't have any from attendees, but I have one last question. What sort of community engagement education measures? What are how do you make outreach and education effective? You said that they ought to be effective, but how are these communities making their education and outreach effective? What challenges are they addressing and overcoming?
So I didn't get the first part of your question, but regarding the education, it reminds me of the measures that the city of Philadelphia has taken to start this from the schools. So I'm sure that part is a simple answer to that question would be would be constructing a culture in our community. So the culture starts from school. So whenever you have some incentives for the schools because in schools you might have a large area of impervious area. So this would be a starting point to incentivize their plans and initiatives to reduce their amount of stormwater management. So this is one way to that. So incentivizing is the most important thing to get people more involved. And with that involvement, you can start educating them. So it definitely be a very important approach that I can mention. If there's anything other, like Najib, you can go.
No, I think you kind of addressed that, but just want to also put more emphasis on it, as I realized through those reports you generated, and of course the interviews we did, how effective these education outreach programs can be. And because most of these measures, green-blue measures, are decentralized, and without the public involvement, there is a chance that they will fail. Especially there is sometimes a fee involved, and there are changes in the way people use their public facilities. How, for example, we have the dual purpose facilities. We have parks that during 90% of the time they are dry and People use it for recreation, but during floods, they turn into flood storage ponds or underground tanks, and so on and so forth. In terms of green roofs and permeable pavements, etc. And something that Mohammad pointed out was that they don't necessarily focus on the general public, but also they target youths and students so that they are educated. And that idea, by implementing these measures for schools intentionally to showcase these stormwater measures to students to demonstrate that, I think that was a very interesting and brilliant idea that kind of demonstrates the usefulness of these approaches to kids, so that they're used to these innovative measures for the future. Yeah.
Awesome. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Great talk. I very much enjoyed it. Don't forget to send me your PDF so we can disseminate it. To everyone else, remember that next month on August 9th, Eric Sparrowland of the City of Richmond, BC, is going to tell us about BC flood risks, challenges, investments, and goals. Thank you all for attending, and I hope to see you next month. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.